When Hamas fighters burst out of Gaza on October 7th and attacked Israel, Palestinians in the tiny occupied territory braced themselves for the inevitable military response by Israel. That response has so far meant more than 26,000 Palestinians being killed. In the process, Israel has damaged or destroyed more than half of all the buildings in Gaza. And nearly 2 million people have been displaced. That's out of 2.3 million. Israel's declared objectives in this war? Self-defense and the elimination of Hamas. But could there be other geopolitical goals at play here? Like clearing the way for massive development projects that include a high-speed railway and access to Gaza's promising offshore gas fields. Even some believe a brand new canal to rival Egypt's Suez. I'm Dareen Abughaida. This is Pinch Point, where politics and geography collide. Let's take a closer look at Gaza. It's tiny, but check out the location. Great access to the Mediterranean, close to Israel's main ports of Haifa, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Tel Aviv, Hadara, close to Israel's huge offshore gas reserves and to oil pipelines critical to Israel's economy. So when things kicked off on October 7th, people down at the Israeli Energy Ministry had some serious concerns. Was Israel's Tamar gas field vulnerable to an attack? They took no chances and shut it down. Sounds simple, but that same field produced up to 50 million cubic meters of gas every day, generating up to 70% of Israel's electricity. All of it now threatened because this natural gas platform is within range of Hamas rockets. And it doesn't end there. This security crisis also threatens other major projects and their interest holders. Take the Europe-Asia Pipeline Company. It transports millions of tons of oil from the Red Sea port of Eilat to Ashkelon to be shipped out or refined there. This terminal was also shut down when the current war in Gaza began. Under a new deal with the UAE, capacity has undergone a massive increase. But with a war on, business as usual is under review. Energy companies are looking more closely at security. Israel has a clear position on this. Its security and diplomatic needs come first, and Hamas must go. The region sits on a major trade route between East and West. Global powers have fought over it for thousands of years. Let's zoom in again, this time over the Suez Canal. The limitations of the 150-year-old canal were laid bare at 7:40 local time on March 23, 2021. That's when the Ever Given container ship ran aground and blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days. Think about it. Roughly $3 billion of cargo travels up and down the canal every single day. That's an astounding 12% of global trade. Egypt has had to close it a few times. Remember the Suez Crisis or the Second Arab-Israeli War? That's when Israel, France, and the United Kingdom attacked Egypt in 1956 after its president, Jamal Abdel Nasser, nationalized the canal. And when the Third Arab-Israeli War broke out in 1967, the canal remained closed until 1975. And Israeli shipping was only allowed to start using the Suez Canal in 1979. But while Israel didn't have access to the shipping route, the Americans hatched an idea to build a whole new canal to rival Suez. It involved Eilat. And those big ports on the Mediterranean coast I mentioned earlier, Haifa, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Tel Aviv, Hadara, the plan called for the excavation of a new channel using, wait for it, more than 500 nuclear bombs detonated underground through the hills of the Negev desert. It was thought so provocative that the plan only came to light in the 1990s when it was finally declassified. It would have been called the Ben Gurion Canal, after Israel's first prime minister. Here's one route suggested in that declassified report. It would go from Eilat to Ashkelon, skirting Gaza. At close to 300 kilometers, it would be 100 kilometers longer than Suez, which means it would take longer to get from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. And it would be crazy expensive to build. Some estimates put it as high as $55 billion. But given that Egypt makes close to $10 billion a year from the Suez Canal, the return on investment might be attractive. And, as it's been pointed out in publications like these, it might be cheaper and easier to simply take a shortcut through Gaza itself, where nearly 2.3 million Palestinians live. But right now, Israel is talking about another plan, a $27 billion high-speed rail link between North and South with links to the Med. It's even got a nickname, the Inland Suez Canal. The idea would be to improve tourism links to Eilat, but most of the traffic would be freight, shifting goods from Asia to Europe and back. Here's Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu talking about it last July.
היום אנחנו משיקים את פרויקט ישראל אחת, חיבור המדינה כולה ברכבת מהירה. אני מוסיף שבעתיד אנחנו נוכל גם להעביר מטעני סחורות ברכבת מאילת לנמלים שלנו בים התיכון, ונוכל גם לחבר את ישראל ברכבת לסעודיה וחצי האי ערב. אנחנו עובדים גם על זה.
But that would need local cooperation. And right now, cooperation in and around Gaza is in short supply, and financiers are risk-averse. They don't like wars, and they don't like rockets. Which brings us back to Gaza. Its place in the world means it's become a big problem for Israel. But there's something else to think about. Gaza has gas of its own. Only last June, Israel gave preliminary approval for the Gaza marine field to be developed. And now most of the money it would generate would go to the Palestinians. There's certainly enough gas to power all of the Palestinian lands. Some could even be exported. But, and it's a big but, Netanyahu has said the whole deal hinges on preserving the state of Israel's security and diplomatic needs. So given the war, we can safely assume that the deal for Palestinian gas is going nowhere fast. But now things have gotten even more complicated since Israel has given companies licenses to explore offshore natural gas fields some consider to be within Palestinian maritime borders. I'll get into that in another episode. In the end, Israel's stated aim, as we've said, is to take the war to Hamas, to destroy the organization after the October 7th attacks. But then there's also all these economic interests that are at play. It all adds up to a very bad situation for the ordinary Palestinian men, women, and children who find themselves trapped on the front lines.